Okay. Right, so we're live now.
Excellent. Thanks, team. Well, kia ora tātou. Welcome to the Strategy and Operations meeting for Thursday, the 16th of September via Zoom, hopefully for not much longer. I'm just going to hand it over, item number 2, the Council blessing, to the Deputy Mayor, Janet Holborough, with Māori Language Week, who is going to read us the blessing. Over to you, Janet.
Ia mātou e whiriwhiri ana i ngā take ke mua o mātou aro-aro. E pono ana mātou ka kaha tonu ki te whakapau mahara huapai mo te hapori e mahi ne mātou. Me kaha hoki mātou katoa ki a whaihua, ki a tōtika te mātou mahi, a matamaia te whakamua me te hihiri kataia, te arahi I roto e toko tahitanga me te aroha.
Well done. Excellent. We'll now move on to item number 3, apologies. And we have apologies from Parapatumi Raumati Community Board member Kathy Spears and also Guy Burns that we will note. Just double checking, there's no other apologies, Grayson. I know I asked earlier. That's all we've got.
There are no other apologies.
Thanks, Grayson. So just before we move on to item number 4, declarations of interest, and partly so I don't forget, maybe just remind elected members in terms of our Zoom protocols around if you've got a question to raise your hand, if you are voting, if you're for, you tick the green tick, if you're against the X, division, remind me, Grayson, I think that's the right arrows.
The division is the backward facing grey
arrows. Thank you. And as members have questions, I'll call out as I have done the previous meetings and just order you up, and then Grayson will the team will unmute you and so forth. And just remember, when you're voting, to unvote at the end of it. We'll allow a few seconds, check with the Dem Services team that they've recorded the votes, and then I'll get you to remove your votes, and then we'll move on from there. So just thought it might be helpful to remind you all around that process. So we'll now move on to item number 4, declarations of interest relating to the items on the agenda. I'm not aware of any that have been brought to my attention other than Mr. Mansell, who isn't in the meeting at the moment. He had indicated that he may be a little bit late.
He's in the meeting now, James.
He is in the meeting now. So Richard, what I'd said to the team, I sent you an email earlier this morning that you may not have had time to read, from our elected members training around conflicts of interest and the different levels of conflict. That's a decision for the individual elected member to make. Other members may have a view that a member is conflicted, but at the end of the day, it's up to the individual to declare that or not. So I tend to err on the side of caution. It's up to you whether you want to declare a conflict in relation to item number 8.3 around the food bank. So I'll just check with you before we move on.
Thank you, James. Yes, I should probably mention that Coastlands and the food bank are currently in negotiations for them to lease some space from us. It's on the commercial terms, probably nothing to do with the council, but I just wanted it noted. Thank you.
Okay, can I just check with that so that I'm following good practice, whether Mr. Mansell raising that he should step back from the discussion at the time of the report being considered, so that we're really clear?
Yes, Mr. Chair, that would be my advice. There is a pecuniary discussion going on, so while Mr. Mansell doesn't directly stand to benefit from us granting money, his organisation arguably does. So my recommendation would be he steps back from the discussion.
Thank you, Wade, and that was my thoughts as well. So just that's the advice there for you, Rich, and I appreciate you raising it with me, so that we can keep things all good and squeaky clean and protect yourself as well in terms of your business and interests. So in terms of that item there, remind me, Grayson, that's just noted in terms of in it rather than moving and seconding?
Yes, it's just noted in the minutes.
Thank you. So we now move on to item number 5, public speaking time relating to items on the agenda. Do we have any, team?
There are no public speakers.
Okay. All right. So item number 6, members' business. There is no responses to public speaking. Any leave of absence requested from elected members? Just pop your hand up if you want to request a leave of absence. I can't see. Oh, Councillor Holborough. When would you like
Sorry.
leave?
So I'm just looking at my calendar next week from Sunday 19th through to Friday 24th.
Okay, do we have someone that wants to move the leave of absence for Councillor Holbrook from the 19th to the 24th? I think I saw His Worship the Mayor, and then seconded by Councillor Henford. Any further discussion? Can't see any hands going up. All those in favour say aye. The green, tick your green box, team. Or your red if you don't want the leave. Approved. And I can't see all the screens, Grayson and Tanika, so if you guys could just help me here. We got
We have 9 votes in favour.
excellent. That is passed. If you can all just unvote, untick your votes or whatever. And that is passed. So item number 6C, matters of an urgent nature. There's been none made aware to me. And so we'll now move on to the formal reports. Sorry, item number 7, updates. There is none. And so we now move on to item number 8.1 on page 6, which is the Kapiti Destination Management Plan. And I'm going to hand it over to staff to walk us through that report. So I think we've got Mark up first, is it? Or Darren? Sorry, Darren.
Yeah, Morena, Chair and elected representatives. Thank you for the opportunity to bring this paper to you today. As you're aware, and it's noted in the report, the development of the Destination Management Plan was identified as a key action in the Economic Development Strategy and was a deliverable in the first year of the plan. The development of the plan is important because it means that we're aligned with what's happening at a regional level and a national level also, as well as ensuring that we're working with industry, iwi, partners, and the community in a joined up way in terms of the opportunities and the challenges for the destination sector. Before we take any questions, we've asked Kylie from TRC and also Neil Mackay from the Economic Development Kotahitanga Board to join us today. And so I'd like to hand over to Kylie just to talk through the plan. As you're aware, Kylie has been involved in the discussions with the community for a number of months and has really brought that into the plan to make sure that it is a joined up perspective and that we also understand the aspirations of the community for destination management. We also understand what's really important in terms of the areas such as the environment, culture, and those things as well. And also making sure that the actions that we put in place are actions that we can deliver upon and that we are focused in terms of next steps. So hand over to Kylie now.
Oh, kia ora, Darren, kia ora koutou katoa, ngā mihi kia koutou katoa. I've met you all before, but my name is Kylie Rufyu Karawana, for those that don't remember me. I'm hard to forget, I'm told, but I'm really welcome the opportunity to come back and face the elected members and everyone on the Zoom today, just to I guess, close the circle on what's been a really amazing opportunity to work with your community to understand the opportunity they see for the visitor sector and what might be the opportunity for them to take that forward or even embrace the sector for themselves, look at tourism aspirations that they might want to partake in, and actually be part of the journey to develop and grow the destination from a visitor perspective in terms of ensuring that the community benefits from tourism as much as possible, just as tourism benefits from our community members. So the destination management plan, I'm really proud of the Kāpiti District Coast Destination Management Plan because it was a combined effort. So we've combined all the consultation that we've undertaken, even additional consultations. So when we thought we'd finished, we recognised there were some gaps. We came back into the market and we spoke to more people, gathered as many voices as we could to ensure we were on the right track with the goal, the vision, and the strategic priorities that you are no doubt well aware of through the plan. So we've taken that consultation. The team have invested in some visitor demand surveys and understanding what the visitors really want from Kapiti as a destination. We combined that with research, and that has articulated our why. The community aspirations that are articulated within the document are really strong aspirations, and they're very clear, and they were well received by the community when we came back to do the "this is what you told us" session. Did we get it right? Are we on the right track? And it seemed that we were, because the aspirations resonated with the people that we spoke with. The next process for us for this plan was to come back and get feedback. So we shared the plan. We did that whole session around "this is what you told us." We incorporated all the feedback because that's the important part of this plan. This is a plan for the destination, not for the council, it's for the destination. So we needed to make sure that everyone, all the stakeholders who have had a voice into this plan, who have helped to deliver or help to articulate those aspirations and the why, had the opportunity to ensure that the action plan, the kind of how we were going to achieve that, was right. So we've articulated and captured all of that feedback, some really detailed reviews that came back from the Kāpiti District Coast team were incorporated within the plan, and it was really important to ensure that everyone kind of got a view of it. We understood where it was going, and we were all kind of facing it the same way in the waka. I've used this analogy with you before, but everyone was sitting on the waka, we're all facing in the right direction, and we're all rowing that waka at the right time. So the draft was well-rounded, and I believe the strategic priorities will set the destination on the right path for some really significant growth to achieve some of those aspirations, but also to increase the economic, social, cultural, and environmental benefits within the community, utilising tourism as the vehicle to do so. And I think there was a whole pile of that thinking came from your community, which is why I think the plan is well grounded in terms of what it's able to achieve, as well as being measurable and achievable. The last thing I will talk about before I wrap up my little bit of today's meeting is to talk about the fact that this plan and the strategic priorities and all of the research, the consultation, everything that was taken within this plan will now be utilised to create the broader Wellington Regional Destination Management Plan. So there has been work being done on the 5 kind of core puzzle pieces that create or make up the Greater Wellington region. Now there will be a destination management plan that is being developed by myself and TRC to kind of tie all 5 of them together and to look for some of the, I guess, the broader regional projects that might be required to ensure the region grows just as well as the destinations within the region are able to do so. So I'll thank you all for your time that I've had in over the last few months, and your community has given their time to come out and speak to me. And I'm not sure if I'm handing over to anyone, Darren, or answering any questions. What was I doing now?
We were going to ask Neil Mackay from the Economic Development Kotanga Board to speak next.
Morena, Neil, I hope you're available there.
Neil, you just need to unmute yourself.
Unmute. I'll unmute myself. It's not the first time that's happened to me. Where am I?
You're unmuted now.
You're fine now, Neil.
Oh, you're muted now, Neil. You need to just unmute yourself again. There you go. All good.
There you go. So there you go. Just to add to the challenge, Look, just to add a wee bit to what Kylie's just said, the individual Kotahitanga board members, 3 of them participated in the process, and they were very complimentary on how the sessions were actually structured and the quality of the discussion. Look, the board endorses the destination management plan, but too many good plans fail at this stage to achieve the desired outcomes. So it's actually very important that effective and collaborative leadership is required to support the delivery of the activity. So the board has a mandate under the Kapiti Economic Development Strategy as lead in the destination management plan, and is proposing to establish a subcommittee subject to S&O approval, which would include local tourism industry leaders. It's important that they are very much part of that process. And look, the purpose of the subcommittee is to provide oversight for the rollout, stakeholder communication, and implementation of the DMP. And the board is putting some finishing touches to a collaboration agreement that we've got with Wellington, New Zealand, and that's covering both the economic development and RTO activities. And that's part of that agreement is to ensure that resourcing and funding is committed to support the delivery of this plan. So what we're doing is we're looking at a joined up approach with council officers, the subcommittee, Wellington, New Zealand, and iwi to ensure that the implementation of the plan does happen effectively and efficiently. And the board is also lobbying, or will also be lobbying at a regional level and a national level for increased support for the development of the tourism sector in Kapiti. So that's me. That's all I'd like to say at this stage.
Well, thank you, Neil. And just before we go back to Darren, Kylie, I can certainly say that you are definitely not forgotten, and that is in a good sense. The vibrancy and enthusiasm and passion that you bring to the discussion has been refreshing, and certainly shows through in terms of the work that you've done and the management plan, and obviously the feedback that we've had from the likes of Neil and others in terms of the process as well. So I, for one, have certainly enjoyed working with you throughout the different stages. It's been a pleasure. So Darren, just back to you. I guess we're going to open up for questions for either yourself, Kylie, or Neil, but probably more
Mr. Chair,
yourself,
we just have
Kylie.
the Mayor wanting to ask a question.
Thank you. I just want to check with Darren before we move to, is there anything further you want to add?
I just wanted to endorse what you said about the work developed by TRC. We've had feedback at a regional and central government level about the quality of the plan, and that this is one of the best ones, not only in the region, but in the country in terms of what they've seen to date. As Neil said, the next steps in terms of implementation are key. And what we've tried to do is ensure that we have resourcing ourselves. But as Neil said, working with Wellington NZ to make sure that that connection is there. It's an area where we have received criticism ourselves, and also Wellington NZ about that relationship and support for the sector. And this plan provides us a great opportunity to correct that and make sure that we move forward in a constructive way to deliver some outcomes for the community, but also the sector itself, sort of thing. And the discussions that we've had with iwi also in this area show that there's some really, really unique opportunities locally, and it's about how we have the right, so partners on board to deliver on those. So hand over to questions.
Thank you, Darren. And I note in the report just your comments around Wellington NZ, that's reflected in there in terms of them coming to the table as well. So, Your Worship, the Mayor, you're up first, and then I've got Councillor Hanford second.
Yeah, I've got 3 questions, if you'll bear with me. My first is a broad one, which is aimed towards, I suppose, Wayne and his senior team. We are looking at, teams are working in silos, so to speak, producing this report. How does this destination strategy or plan communicate or talk with, for instance, the growth strategy? Now, if you look at the agenda, page 20 talks about, in terms of defining the community, talks about, and I quote, there are several characterful villages that offer different experiences. You take from there that this is important to maintain. So does the growth strategy reflect the continuation of these villages? What type of development will undermine that? What type of development we don't want in that area to undermine that? That's one. And then if you look at the other document, that the open space strategy, which you'll consider later on today, the destination definition for us around high quality environment and natural environment is important. So how does the open space strategy talk to the destination plan? These are different silos, if you like, but are they talking to each other? And it's not canceling each other. It's a broad question. That's my first question.
We can answer the specifics about those other documents and have done in the briefings on them, but no, we're not working in silos. The whole point is there are many pieces to this puzzle, and we are absolutely working across the organisation. It's actually quite pleasing that a lot of these things are landing. So when you discuss them, you obviously discuss one topic at a time, but I think in the last few days, just with the range of briefings you've had on various topics, you've seen just how well they are all starting to mesh together and point in the same direction, which is what we want.
Wayne, could I just add to that? It's probably, and not necessarily intentionally, but it's helpful that we're working on these three streams of work almost at the same time. Sometimes in the past, that would be at separate times within election cycles or years. And so the way that it's worked at the moment is that we've literally been working on all three in the last 12 to 18 months.
Right. Sorry.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, we have, but we have intentionally aligned these pieces of work. So, for example, COVID got in the way as well, but the likes of the open spaces strategy, we actually took a little bit extra time to get that lined up alongside the growth strategy for those very reasons. So sometimes you don't have a choice, you need to get something landed, the timing of our economic development work and the funding from government and other things. But in this case, we're working really hard to align them.
Thanks, Wayne. Back to you, Your Worship.
No, I've got two other questions. My second question is to Neil Mackay. Now, in earlier, one of the first discussions I had with you was on the broadband capacity. We talk about the transmission gully and the benefits of having closer physical links to transport. I did raise the issue of the digital highway, given one, the increasing ability of people to work from home in the region, nationally and internationally. But now we are hearing from the destination plan, there are issues of visitors being able to have access to the digital network and connections. Have we got a handle on that aspect of the broadband availability and covering, which has got significant impact on economic development these days?
Neil, just need to unmute yourself.
Yeah, Guru, no, not at this stage. We don't. We've been struggling with other priorities, and obviously that's on our list of things to do, but we haven't got our heads around that just yet.
My next question is, there's a reference to, on agenda page 31, on the family and friends being a high content in terms of visitors coming here. Is this connected to the attraction of Kāpiti as a retirement area, both retirement villages and also people who retire in ordinary houses, if you like? Is that a key area of why the visitors are coming here for family and friends?
So is that question...
Is that related to the fact that we are a retirement area?
Is that a question for me, is it, Guru?
Yes.
Okay, so look, I haven't gone into the detail of that, and that's part of the piece of work that needs to be done in a lot more detail. So the short answer to that is it's a piece of work again that needs to be done.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
I
you.
suppose I can just add, I could initially just add to that in terms of this is some of the stuff that's come through the Colma Brunton work that we did. It showed, I suppose, where the areas of opportunity are in terms of encouraging increased visitation. We already have a strong connection through friends and family, so people are aware of the market, they understand what the offer is here, and so that is something there. People do come and see, their parents and grandparents and all those sorts of things. So it's a existing market that is an important market for us. But in terms of the growth opportunity, it's those people in the day trippers and all those sorts of things that provide the opportunity for really growing in that natural environment, looking for new experiences, those ones who don't know the story about Kapiti currently, sort of thing.
Councillor Hanford and then Councillor Holborough.
Cool. Kia ora, Mr. Chair. Kia ora te whānau. My question probably for Kylie, I would say, but anyone's welcome to pick this one up. Just in terms of the strategic priority, creating a destination recognised for acting sustainably, I note on page 17 of our council papers in the appendix, there's a comment under that strategic priority that says the council is currently exploring strategic imperatives to support this aspiration at a wider community level, but this aspiration was shared by stakeholders and industry within the visitor economy. So I'm just wondering when it's referred to that council is currently exploring strategic imperatives, just wanting to, I guess, understand what that process is, where it's at, and what we can kind of expect to see, and when we can expect to see those strategic kind of imperatives coming through to support that aspiration. So probably half for Kylie and half for someone else, really.
Yeah, I think so. But I think from my perspective, I'll just jump in with the fact that I had done a lot of background and desktop research, and Darren and Janice and Jamie and the team sent me a lot of the council documents and strategies and priorities that you have. I know you have a carbon neutrality aspiration. I know that there is a waste management kind of view in terms of what can we do to reduce, recycle, mitigate, minimize all of those good things that we need to do. So that comment was referring specifically to the documents that I had read, but also was referring to the very extremely strong community aspirations to ensure that we're working in this direction and in the right way. But I'll leave it to someone else, Darren, maybe, who might have more insight into that.
Yeah, I think, thank you, Kylie. This comes back to the point raised before about the fact that we're not working in isolation, that we're aware that this work is going on across council. So making sure that we're talking with Minka and her team about what's happening in terms of the space to make sure that these things are joined up in terms of not only our strategy but also delivery of actions, and so that's crucial that we're not duplicating activity, we're also competing against each other. Other examples are where we're working with the parks team in terms of trails work and all those sorts of things to make sure that this is joined up in terms of delivering of activity as well as the strategy.
Can I just test that a little bit, Darren, before we move? We'll check whether Sophie's got a follow-up question or another question. Is then the use of the word exploring appropriate rather than implementing? Because if we've got a lot of those things underway at the moment and already doing or done some of that stuff, then surely the more appropriate terminology would be that we're currently implementing strategic imperatives.
Oh, look, definitely it could be sort of thing. It's a situation where the learnings that we've been taking through this work we have been applying, and that includes in the marketing area also, sort of thing. So there's definitely areas where we're putting in place steps already.
I would just also argue that from an industry perspective, you are exploring what can be done from a tourism industry standpoint, what operators can be doing in this space,
Sure.
how we can support community, etc. So I think that's where that came from as well.
Sure, no, and that does make sense, Kylie. Thank you. Councillor Hanford, have you got a further question?
Not a further question, but just to really briefly say that, thanks for those answers both. And I guess too, I was really keen to just understand the kind of time frame around that. Like once we've explored, when are we going to be like the kind of process for implementing some of those strategic imperatives? And obviously, as has been mentioned, it's a joined up approach and that there are things happening 24/7 all the time. And this climate action and climate justice needs to be across and around and within everything we do. But just trying to understand like how much do we explore before we just crack into it and, act on those imperatives that, we need to act on now. So, but that, thanks for your answers. That gives me context. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Councillor Hanford, is there any response to that, Darren, before we move on to the next person?
So I suppose this is part of the process in terms of working through the implementation with the board. You know, it's just making sure we've got the right resources in place, and that includes those Wellington NZ ones. So we will look to report as part of the board will look to report on that as part of the November, December S&O meeting.
Thanks, Darren. I'm going to move now to Councillor Holborough and then Councillor Halliday.
Kia ora tātou. Thanks for the incredible work that's gone into this. I know that there's been such a huge amount of engagement and consultation with stakeholders, wanting to just have a bit more information about how those conversations have happened with iwi. I'm just looking at page 20, defining the region physically, and I just wonder if there's a little bit of a missed opportunity about how the region looks physically in terms of iwi boundaries, and I just wondered whether that had been looked at. And then again on page 23 under mana whenua, it talks about our te whakamininga or Kāpiti arrangements there, but not really about the significant amount of direct engagement we have with iwi and those other involvements. So I'm just wondering whether it was considered to have further information on that. I noticed that the three iwi, as far as I could find, are only mentioned in brackets, and then they're abbreviated names as part of the Art Confederation rather than explicit information on or those more information identifying the rohe and the role of iwi. So there were a couple of questions in there, I think.
Look, I think in terms of iwi and working with iwi, we have made it a real priority through the plan, and obviously it's important that the plan does deliver a joined up approach. I think in terms of recommendations around, defining, borders from an iwi perspective, we didn't consider that, and I suppose it's something we could consider in terms of before the final plan is finished. We definitely wanted to make sure that we had as much reference to iwi collectively as possible in the document, and I think at times we're always sort of, pushing for more and more. I think it's about making sure that we don't say things that aren't representation of iwi views, though, so we're very conscious of that. And I think, our aspirations are that, as we go through the delivery of this plan, that, that increases more and more in terms of the opportunities to work with iwi in a joined up partnership approach. And that's really shown in the deliverables that come through the plan as well.
Yeah, thank you.
Team, just to help you understand how moving through the questions, it's just as I see them on the screen. So if you were in front of somebody else, my apologies. But I see Councillor Halliday up next, and then Councillor Buswell, then Councillor Pravanov.
Morena, everybody. Look, on page 26, which is page 7 of the plan, it talks to, and I'll just read out the paragraph, a key action in the economic development strategy is to support the growth of the visitor economy, including strengthening air linkage and supporting infrastructure as te urahi. And a medium-term outcome is the growth of the visitor economy. Look, I'm just curious on views. Do you think, with regards to what has happened with COVID and its impact on the smaller local business in this particular sector, that visitor growth perhaps should be more of an immediate priority, not a medium one? As really, in my view, the airport linkage or te urahi is really sort of in that medium space, more so than wanting to get that visitor attraction moving with our local markets. It's also a key action in the ED strategy is to support the growth of the visitor economy.
So through the chair, I can confirm that the team is actively working with the sector at the moment. A big part of the current lockdown is obviously the impact that it has directly on the sector, and really making sure that support is provided through level 4, 3, and as we go into level, as we're in level 2 now, to make sure that the sector is geared up to be prepared for opportunities to encourage visitation, to make sure that they have the awareness in terms of the market out there locally, but also across the region, sort of thing. So definitely, I think, I think the growth of the sector as a whole, that is it's a medium, we're not going to achieve that overnight. I think it's the sort of thing that we are, though, working on now to make sure that we can deliver over the medium and long term sort of situation.
Darren, can I just follow up on that with Kylie? Because if I remember back through the workshops and that we did with Kylie, without even mentioning the topic of the gateway or Te Urihi, it kept pointing towards the need for something like that to communicate what is on offer on the Kapiti coast, even in the short term. So Kylie, interested in your thoughts around the importance of, so rather than put words in Martin's mouth, relaying what Martin had said around those priorities.
I think that's the main goal for the plan. The vision for the plan is to grow the visitor economy, and part of that, to grow the visitor economy, you need to grow the visitor sector. So there needs to be visitor growth. People need to be coming into the district, spending money, staying longer, and have the option to stay longer. I think Te Urihi provides the opportunity to, in the medium term, because it's not built yet, it's an asset that is coming, but in the medium term, it will help with information. It will help with a point of visibility on the coast where people can go to learn more about the coast, to learn and access and really pull individually unique aspects that you have within the coast. So I think that's where that potentially, that's what Councillor Halliday was referring to, was talking about something. The reason it's midterm is because that particular asset is yet to be built, and I do think it will be of value to the region, absolutely, in terms of what it will be able to do. Growing the visitor economy, the plan, everything that is in the plan is about growing the visitor economy and about attracting visitors, but you've got to set yourselves up for success from the very beginning. You've got to have the product, you've got to have the right marketing, you've got to have the right tone of voice when speaking to visitors. So it's about setting everything up now. And now's a good time to do it. As a small tourism business myself down in Dunedin, we're utilising this time to tweak our language, to determine how best to communicate with potential visitors for new and existing markets. How can we be more proactive so when we do get the bounce, and the bounce will come, when we do get that bounce, we're setting ourselves up in the right way to make the most of that bounce. And I think that's what this plan is doing. This plan is kind of really giving you some requirements for growth that are going to be manageable and articulate enough to actually see some really strong growth in the medium term. But in the short term, it's all about working to put all of the ducks in a line. I don't know how many cliches I used in that answer, but that's what I would say.
Kia ora, Kylie. And I think the term that I've heard is businesses being ready to shoot out of the starting gate when the time is right. So, Martin, I appreciate you may have some further questions. So
I do. Look, I do appreciate what everyone said in regards to that. But again, one of the things that was pointed out during our briefings was in the surveying that was done is that everything's here. People just aren't aware of it. So I guess what I'm referring to is it's all very well and fine to be saying that we need to be setting ourselves up. We are quite well set up. There is quite a lot
Martin,
to do. Yep.
Can I clarify, just because I've still got a few more hands up, I'm not trying to cut you off, but rather than debate the answers, if you could get on to your next questions would be helpful.
Fair enough. Just one other question. Look, 22.2 on page 9 generally talks to Wellington NZ being limited in their ability to assist us, or previously having been limited in their ability to assist us with destination marketing activities. However, changes have been made. Recently, that change was with Greater Wellington Regional Council. I'm just curious, is this around the 500, part of the 500K that we send in their direction, or, what's been the problem? Perhaps you could expand on that.
So I think that one is for Darren or Neil, and it is referring to the funding that we sent to them, Martin, but I'll leave it up to them to answer. Darren?
Yes, so I suppose most of the money that Wellington NZ receives for marketing activity has come from Wellington City Council to date. And the money from the Greater Wellington Regional Council, which includes our money, is basically, is being provided for economic development activity. We've always argued that obviously marketing is part of economic development activity and it should be reflected in that. So what they've agreed is that with Greater Wellington Regional Council to allocate a portion of the money to support destination marketing activity in this current financial year. And as part of the regional economic development plan, they will look into the ongoing requirements in terms of how the money should be apportioned across the, across the activities of Wellington NZ in the future years. And what we've been doing is, with the board, is talking to Wellington NZ to make sure that there is, alignment of activity and priority in terms of destination marketing and those sorts of things with Kapiti, so that we can get the appropriate marketing awareness through Wellington NZ channels also.
Thank you, Darren. And look, I'm going to just check with Neil, because I know Martin, that as Chair of Strategy and Ops and Kotahitanga Board reporting back through this committee, Neil's kept me up to date with the work that he's doing there. I know he's been doing a lot of work with Wellington NZ, a lot of good work. So I want to give Neil the opportunity just to talk to that. So make sure you unmute yourself, Neil, and it's over to you.
I'm unmuted, and thanks, Martin, for the question. Look, I wish it was as clear as the pass through Greater Wellington Regional Council. We had a session just yesterday with John Allen, and he is now, they are now much more in the party. We've been much more specific about our needs. They are now engaging around our needs and are aligning their services and funding to those needs. The elusive thing at the moment is just how much, and we are trying to nail them down on that, and that's just part of the negotiation. But certainly they're aware of it. They're aware that in the past they haven't necessarily funded as much as they should have, and they are they're getting on board and wanting to get involved, not just as service providers and funders, but also as partners. So that's moving very much in the right direction.
Thank you, Neil. Martin, I can't recall whether you had one more. That was the last one. Councillor Buswell, then Councillor Pravanov, then Councillor Compton.
Thank you. Great to see you again, Kylie. And what I really love about this strategy is that it's really, really well balanced. There are some things that actually, you read through it and you think, yes, that's what everyone's been banging on about for the last how many years. We need a strategy and we need it to be saying this. And it's really summarised all of our community's feelings for the past several years, both good and bad. I think it's extremely well balanced. And just talking in terms of our industry, and I guess this is also a bit of a flow on from Martin's question, is that we've got on page 25 of the agenda, we've got a bit about the strategic context, and we've got a wee bit in there about New Zealand tourism sustainability commitment. Look, I'm just wondering how many of our local businesses have actually signed up to these kind of schemes, because our tourism offer depends on our tourism businesses actually developing their businesses, investing in their businesses, and actually believing in their businesses that they have got a great offering, and how are they doing it. And this is the type of thing that, yeah, they need to be offering our tourist sector. I guess it's to Kylie more, maybe. Darren?
I can't give you specifics in terms of how many businesses have signed into the tourism commitment. I do know that if they are TIA members, it's automatic. So the membership comes with, you must sign into these commitments. So when you look at the tourism sustainability commitment documents, you look at Tiaki, which is another program that is endorsed by TIA and through DOC. Those are great programs, and they articulated across the 4 well-beings with steps underneath to actually achieve what tourism sustainability might look like. And it's a very and I mean this in the best way. It's a simple thing to sign into, but to your point, Angela, you have to ensure that as an industry, you're actually embracing the ethos that sits behind it, and you're actually working to ensure that you're giving back across, culturally, socially, environmentally, and economically back into the community. And sustainability, much like kaitiakitanga, Te Wiki o Te Reo Māori, kaitiakitanga is across all those environments. It's about preparing and ensuring we've got sustainability across all of those environments. So I would say that if they are members of TIA, they would automatically have signed into those commitments, but there should be a focus from the industry and a focus on the development as we move forward through this plan, that operators don't just sign into these programs, that they actually embrace the ethos and work to ensure that it's embedded in their very fabric of how they operate and how they deliver their experiences.
And so would that be, I guess, the same principle around the Qualmark? Because we've got very few Qualmark tourist accredited operators here too.
Qualmark's, sorry, I spoke over you, apologies. Qualmark's slightly different because Qualmark is a quality assurance check to ensure that you are set up to be good at business. Are you able to run a really strong tourism business? It's a business health check, it's an audit. But the strength of Qualmark and the reason why operators should be, jumping to be part of Qualmark is the fact that Qualmark will allow you to work with Tourism New Zealand. Tourism New Zealand will give you access to international markets, but now New Zealand is a foundation market for Tourism New Zealand. So if you would like to be marketed by Tourism New Zealand to our, at the moment, captive audience of one market, New Zealand, then you need to be Qualmark accredited. But as a business, you also need to understand that it provides you assurance that what you've got set in place and the way that you run your business is going to mean you're going to be around for a long period of time. So they're slightly different, but just as important.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Just another little quick question. On page 21 of the agenda, there's mention of the airport, I guess as part of our connectivity and so forth. But there isn't really anything around that says that we also connect to the South Island, because there are regular routes backwards and forwards to the South Island. And also the Heliworks that operates there. It's just kind of focused a little bit on Air Chatham's. And I would like to see a broader offering expressed in that caption, if that's possible.
I think this is where you'll definitely see stuff come through in terms of the marketing strategy and those sorts of things. So that talks about the market opportunities and the different things that relate in terms of how we start to target key markets. Obviously, connectivity is really important to be able to target a market and making sure that people can actually come into an area. And so, the ability to align where there is services provided provides us with an opportunity to do a joint approach. And so, the work that we did with Colma Brunton, obviously the work we've done with Kylie and TRC, helps us put together a really strong marketing plan that means we can take a really targeted approach, because we also know the type of product that they're interested in as well. So we know what resonates with different markets as well. So I think that's where you'll start to see that more coming through as well.
Okay, and just another quick question. With the onset of the destination strategy, we talked about not just focusing on tourism. I understood it to be more tourism and business as a destination to come in and set up your business or come and be a tourist. And I see that it's really focused and really honed in on the tourism and visitor attraction and so forth. I'm just wondering, maybe at a later stage, something could be distilled from this to actually create more of a business attraction as a destination as well.
Yeah, look, definitely. I think, for us, obviously, attraction of new business into the area is important. And you'll see there's as part of this plan, we want to grow the product offer. So it's not just about marketing, it's about making sure we grow the product offer and attract business in. I think in terms of, there's obviously a lot of other pieces of work going on as well that are complementary to this. And you'll see the attraction come through as we take that targeted sector approach and those sorts of things as well. So, I think the attraction of businesses is going to come through in a number of ways, and all the information that we're gathering through plans like this help to really understand what the opportunity is for the district.
And some of the
Thanks,
priorities,
that's great.
Sorry, I was just going to say some of the priorities speak directly to business support and ensuring that those mechanisms are there to support businesses. Those mechanisms will support any business. It's just looking at tourism with a lens and as it's reflected within this document. Sorry, I talked over you.
Sure. Yeah.
Thanks,
No,
Dave.
that's all good. I was just going to say that's great. Thank you.
Councillor Pravanov. Good morning, Jocelyn. Thanks for waiting.
Morning, James. Good morning, everyone else. So thank you. It's been really interesting. It's a really interesting paper and a really interesting document, and it's really important to have a long-term strategy or even a medium, a strategy that indicates where this is going to go. So I suppose what I'm sort of thinking about is how this is actually going to work this summer. And I know I asked this question last year. So I've heard a few comments about how I think there's going to be another report coming in November. We've talked about destination businesses and attractions, but I suppose I'd like to, maybe not now, but at some point fairly soon, understand exactly what the short-term plan is for this summer and potentially what the economic benefits of them are. Because if you actually continue by just doing, looking at the more medium and longer term plans of things, again this summer, we're going to be missing out on a great opportunity.
Over to you, Darren. And I know your team are constantly doing stuff around the destination Kāpiti and so forth, and we've got the major events fund and so forth, but over to you.
Yeah, look, we can definitely bring a briefing back and obviously work with the board in terms of those next steps. The team is actively working on these things at the moment, and we're also recruiting a marketing advisor at the moment as well. We see that this summer is a crucial period. Obviously, businesses have been doing it harder the last few months because of lockdown, and it's really important that we are working in a joined up fashion with them. So the team have already got a lot of things that they've been doing in terms of the website, working with social media. A couple of months ago, we had our recharge campaign also, which was very successful. And so there's a lot of learnings that we'll be putting in place for this upcoming period.
Okay, I appreciate that. It'll be really interesting to hear what is actually in the plan. Thank you.
Thanks, Jocelyn. Councillor Compton, Morena.
Morena, everyone. Through the chair, I've got a few questions here. So my first one is about page 10.23.3 in terms of the progression of development options for the council-owned property at 26 Marine Parade. I was hoping someone might be able to elaborate a bit more about what's going on there in terms of those options that are being investigated, and whether those align with council's reasons for purchasing that land that took place under the previous triennium.
Thanks, Gwen. I think that's probably one for Wayne off the top of my head.
Look, I suppose I can talk about things that are going on. So we have previously commissioned some work to talk about the feasibility of a hotel or accommodation provider on there. That was part about confirming the need in terms of accommodation in the area, and also what is the type of facility that could potentially work, and the size of that facility. So we've had that work. Obviously, you're aware that there's some work going on at the moment in terms of density in our town centres, and a big one that has been a challenge with that site in the past is the ability to go up a certain number of levels. So obviously we've been trying to understand whether those sorts of things are going to ensure that the options for the site provide feasibility to provide accommodation options, and so working through those at the moment. We've also been talking with different parties in terms of the private sector to understand potential interest and those sorts of things in the area, and what sort of options are available. So those works are progressing. We also have money in the budget to progress in this current financial year as well from an OPEX perspective.
Perfect, thank you. That was really helpful. My next one is on page 54 of today's papers. It's page 35 of the plan itself. The strategic priority 1 talks about giving the role of a regional tourism organisation to the most appropriate agency, or looking at what the most appropriate agency is to give that role to. I guess that given that Wellington NZ doesn't really have a great history of delivering for Kapiti in that regard, as it's obviously serving the wider Wellington region. It's got to serve Wellington City, Porirua, Lower Hutt, Upper Hutt, and even the Wairarapa, who have their own specific one destination Wairarapa. I guess my question is it on the table that this will lead to the consideration of us bringing back a RTO specifically for Kāpiti?
Did you want to talk to that, Neil?
Yeah, we had the similar conversation with that yesterday with John Allen, basically outlining the fact that in the past we haven't been well served, that it has been very Wellington centric, and not much money or support has come up the Naranga Gorge, and he is going away to see what he can do about that. I mean, I think it really depends on their response, and we should weigh that up and look at all alternatives, in my view.
Cool.
Next
Thank
one.
So the plan also talks about leveraging te urihi, and we sort of had Councillor Halliday ask about that earlier, and Kylie spoke about believing it would add value. I guess my concern is that despite several goes at the business cases and repeated requests by me, those business cases weren't ever able to quantify any net benefits in terms of additional visitor numbers or additional visitor spend, and just use the pre-existing organic non-gateway growth and the visitor numbers and claim that for the gateway, which was an error in that business case. So what's the basis, an actual solid basis for assuming that the gateway will deliver any net benefit versus other spends for that money? Because as Councillor Halliday said earlier, we already have basically all the pieces here, but we've consistently failed to market them to the rest of the country. So I'm wanting to understand what the assumptions are behind the ability to leverage it, given the process council's been through in considering this.
I suppose in terms of, this is part of a joined up offer. It's sort of saying that there's not one channel you can rely upon in terms of how you communicate the offer when you're trying to engage visitors. So this is where things like connectivity, in terms of digital connectivity and making sure that we're communicating through digital channels, that we do have those physical assets and those two things in place where people can if they're in the area where they can find out more information, they can engage with the community, they can engage with the culture and those sorts of things. And te urihi provides that opportunity to not only make sure there's that protection of the island, provide that physical sort of entry point into the district that talks about what's on offer here, the chance to experience the culture, and the fact that both Ngāti Toa and Te Atiawa are working in a really joined up fashion with us in terms of the delivery of the storytelling aspects of this, but also the physical building itself. And so I think this is about making sure that we do have that sort of ability to be providing the infrastructure to support the growth of the industry as a whole, not just not just parts of it, sort of thing.
Thank you. On page 65 of papers, it's 46 of the destination management plan. It talks about the airport and better leveraging of that, and that was something that Councillor Buswell talked about earlier. But I was interested to note that it talks about paragliding, and I was curious as to whether Kylie was aware that paragliders take off from hills and not airports because they need the altitude and thermals to gain height.
Not being overly fond of being in the air, I was not. So that's my fault. I apologise. But I guess it's more just articulating that there's the opportunity to do parachuting, paraponting. I don't know what it is. Whatever it might be, there's the potential.
Cool. And it references Templeton Group as one of the stakeholders for that. What sort of discussions have taken place with Templeton Group about possibilities to leverage their asset at this point?
I suppose we have ongoing discussions with Templeton Group about different things. They were invited to be part of this process, and obviously we will continue to have ongoing dialogue with Templeton Group as well.
Cool, perfect. And I guess my final question about that, the question leveraging the airport is, I guess, what are the assumptions that it's based on in terms of leveraging the airport? Because you look across the Tararuas at the Wairarapa, they don't have commercial flights. They don't have any tourism things operating out of the airport, but some scenic helicopter things and shuttling of high net individuals in and out of the Wairarapa on those. And they've got more challenging access in terms of the Rimataka Hill. They've had the Manawatu Gorge was closed for a long sort of time. They haven't had commercial flights actually since 2014, I think. But they've consistently outperformed Kāpiti. Their visitor spend, I think, is about a third higher, 207 million to October 2020 versus about 159 million for us. Their guest nights are about 15% higher. So I guess, and you look at Taupo actually as well, they spring to mind. I think their airport only provides maybe 1 or 2% of their tourism numbers in there. It has about 70,000 people use that versus the 2 million people who visit it. So I guess what's the basis for any sort of meaningful ability to leverage the airport?
I think from my perspective, and I think we spoke about this last time I was in council chambers, was that it's an asset you currently have and trying to identify it as their potential to utilise that asset into the future. I do know, having just finished the Wairarapa DMP and working with the team over there, that Hood Aerodrome is a point of exploration, or there is discussions around what is the potential that could be done with Hood Aerodrome from that respect, and also looking to future-proof, as you say, Rimataka does provide some concerns into the future in terms of transportation. Is Hood Aerodrome a potential fix for that, or another view to adding to our kete of experiences to be able to deliver through Hood Aerodrome? So I think from my perspective, when we're talking about exploring or leveraging the airport, it's so you currently have it as an asset. So what is the potential that could be done or operated from that asset? We've talked about earlier in the discussion today around the fact that the Colmar Brunton research pointed out that you've got real strong appeals, top of the south and in Auckland, and you're currently utilising the airport to access some of those markets. So is that potential to even grow that? So that's where that point was coming from. So it was exploring and leveraging improved access across some of the infrastructure that you already have. But more work would need to be done. Darren, did you want to?
Just agreeing with what Kylie was saying, I think, the research shows that, there is a good opportunity in terms of those markets that are more than just a day drive or, a simple drive away. Auckland, you'll see in the plan, the heat map in terms of the change, in terms of obviously awareness. And once there's greater awareness, the interest in coming to Kapiti. And, if we can make that as easy as possible, and obviously leverage the assets that are there at the moment, those make sure that they can be more successful than not.
Cool, thank you.
Thank you. Look, team, it's 20 to 11. We've got Councillor Randall next and Councillor Elliott. Appreciate we've been going for a while on this, but it's an important topic. It's been healthy discussion, and we don't have a lot of pressure on us today. So I'm giving us all the opportunity to put these questions, and hopefully we can then move through to a motion very soon. So Councillor Randall, over to you. Good morning, Morena.
Yeah, good morning. Thank you. My questions is directed to Darren. And Darren, I'm basically disappointed in this strategy. To me, there is nothing new. But my main question is this. Take, for example, the forthcoming Mary Poppins show. Now, what supercalifragilistic expialidocious ideas do you have for keeping the Raumati shops open during this performance? Like, this is what the speaker has said. We've got to grow the visitor economy.
I think, with most destination plans, the biggest thing at the end of the day is implementation. And so that's, a real focus for us, is to make sure that this is not another plan that sits on a shelf, that this is a plan that we focus on implementation. The team is already working with Raumati shops at the moment in terms of a joined up approach to see how that they can be better marketing themselves, making sure that they understand what's needed from a customer perspective and how they work together. We've also, as part of the sponsorship for Mary Poppins, or the support that we're providing, asked that they work with the Raumati shops as well, so that there is a joined up approach, and that they do take, each provide complementary activity to make sure that the most is made of that opportunity.
Thank you, Darren. Councillor Randall, any further questions?
No.
Thank you. Councillor Elliott, thanks for waiting.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. I have two questions. My first is during our briefings and workshops, we discussed the coal mark, and Councillor Buswell has already brought coal mark up. I'm wondering if over the past 9 months there has been any actual action on the ground to inform our tourism operators locally about coal mark and how that works and the benefits of joining up.
Yes, there has. So we have been quite proactive in that, especially because coal mark is free at the moment.
Yes.
It has been. So, definitely making sure that, they're aware of that. As Kylie sort of said before, though, coal mark is not a simple exercise. There is a lot of work involved in terms of going through that process. And so for some of our businesses, that is quite a hard process to go through. And so part of this plan is how do we help our businesses grow, how do we help them go through these processes to make sure that they can take advantage of those opportunities and, understand the benefits of it as well. Because, if they want to be part of the Tourism NZ itineraries, they basically need to be coal mark rated and those sorts of things. So it's an ongoing process, but something we have started.
That's great. And second question, Kylie, you've been an absolute breath of fresh air. You're a fantastic advocate for our tourism industry nationwide, and it's been really awesome to have you working with and for Kāpiti. And I want to keep you here, but we can't. But I wondered, Darren and Ian, if anyone has thought about having Kylie's organisation come back and do an 18-month check-in, a 36-month check-in on our implementation of this good work.
Okay, I think those sorts of things are good ideas, and I think probably the great thing is that Kylie is going to be involved in the regional strategy.
Oh, great!
And so that means that we'll continue to work with Kylie, but at a regional context as well. And so I'd like to think we've got a bit of an advantage in terms of that relationship and the unique knowledge that she now has to inform that plan as well.
Thank you. That's good news. Thank you all for your work.
Excellent. That is good news. Look, Tim, I don't see any further hands up, and we've had a really good shot at this paper. We've got the recommendations on page 11, recommendation 35 and 36. I think, Councillor Buswell, were you looking to move those recommendations with your portfolio hat on? And if so, if someone's prepared to second them. Where are we at, team? I see Councillor Buswell. Are you happy? Can you pop you up, nodding the head? Excellent. And was that seconded by Councillor Holbrook? Have we got a nod there? Yeah, excellent. So moved by Councillor Buswell, seconded by Councillor Holbrook. Right of introduction, Councillor.
Look, it's been really great to see this finally land on our desks, and the timing is really great in terms of other strategies that are coming to the fore, other reports that we're seeing. 2 years ago was a long time ago to sign off the economic development plan. And it's really all coming to a fore with all these strategies that are all interlinking with that activity that's going on there. So I'm really, really pleased to see it come to us. And as I said earlier in our discussions, that it's a very well balanced document. It is, like Bernie Randall said, it is a lot of what we already know. It's not a heck of a lot new, but what it is doing is it's pulling it all together and telling us really good stories of what we're doing great, what we've got there, and what we can do in the future. So I'm really proud of this document, and I would like to thank the staff for the tremendous amount of work that has been put in, both current staff and previous staff. I know that the team has changed hands a few times, but this document actually reflects the broad knowledge of our staff and consultants that have come on board to work on this project with us. So really excited to see it go forward, and also the involvement of the Kotahitanga board that has been really great, and their interactions and getting the Wellington NZ on board to help the Kapiti Coast move forward, which is been a long time in the wings, but finally they've got on board and realising that we are one of the gems of the Wellington region, and hopefully this can really promote us to the next level. So thank you.
Thanks, Angela. Councillor Compton, you're up next. Any other elected members want to speak in debate? If you could get your hands up, help me stack you all ready.
Cool. Thank you. Now, while there's some really good recommendations in this destination management plan, and I'm hugely pleased that my answer to the question earlier about whether the opportunity to re-establish a regional tourism organisation that specifically works for Kāpiti looks like it is going to be given due consideration on this, especially given that I don't personally have confidence in Wellington NZ, given their history in this space of failing to deliver for Kapiti. Unfortunately, there's some issues with this plan, which means that I can't support it going forward today, and I'd like to see it being some changes being made to it. And the key reason for that is that I'm concerned there's some elements in this that are being used as what are effectively Trojan horses to try and push other pet projects that I've had concerns about, and those concerns haven't been addressed yet. As I noted during questions, looking back at February of this year and May last year, there's been issues with the business case of Te Urihi, and those haven't been addressed in terms of what additional benefit it might be able to provide. And that makes me dubious about the inclusion of it in these documents in terms of leveraging it. And then on the airport, I look at the Wairarapa and I look at Taupo, where they have a massive tourism economy, yet the airport plays a minute role, if anything, in bringing tourists to them. They're 5 hours from Wellington, they're about 4 hours from Auckland. You have to fly there from the South Island from there. They've got more commercial flights than we have. But in the last pre-COVID year, 2019, they had a 300,000 deficit before tax, and they have more commercial flights. They have lots of scenic flights. They have airports shuttling people around to Rotorua up to the ski fields. They have parachuting from there. So you can have all these additional things. You can leverage the airport, but it still plays a very marginal role. And so in my opinion, I think we'd be far better following the lead of the Wairarapa and having our own regional tourism organisation that just focuses on us and marketing the absolute hell out of our district. Because as Councillor Halliday said, we have nearly all of the stuff here. The two issues where we're struggling are that we haven't had the marketing and that we struggle with the accommodation. And there's things in the plan that will address this, but those are what I see as the two main issues that we should be focusing on. And in terms of that marketing, as a district, we're going to enjoy over the next decade amazingly improved access, both through road transport and crucially through public transport from Wellington to Palmerston North. And that's where we should be focusing our priority on. And like I said, we just have to look across the Tararuas to see that this is a hugely successful and cost-effective approach. Wairarapa was one of the fastest growing tourism sectors in terms of taking advantage of this captive team of 5 million market that we have at the moment. And that was in terms of their tourism spend and guest nights. As I said, they're outperforming us by a third in terms of visitor spend and by about 15% in terms of guest nights. So they're getting more value out of the tourists that they do get than we currently get. So as I said, there are some really good things in here. And, if I was a betting man, I'm guessing this is going to be passed today. So I hope that they make some really good traction on stuff, especially around the regional tourism organisation. But ultimately, there's some red flags in here that mean that I can't support it going forward today. And just to give the chair a heads up, I'd like there to be a division when it comes to the vote, please.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Elliott, you're up next.
Look, thank you. Once again, I would like to take the opportunity to thank the team, Kylie, your company, for your time and effort putting this plan together. It's been fantastic. In my time in council, I've seen many plans go through all this process, get accepted, and then basically get put in a drawer and not looked at again. And I don't want this to happen with our tourism potential. So once again, I am going to ask for that it's considered that we do have a really comprehensive review of the implementation in 18 months. If anything, just to refresh and remind all the operators and people out there with different tourism operators, to keep walking in a straight line and running in a straight line, and to make sure things are cohesive and that we are all definitely getting the benefits out of our district finally, and getting to show ourselves off in a really professional way to the best of our ability. So yeah, that's definitely my plug. I will be supporting this just because it is a great restarter, and sometimes you need restarters. So thank you. You're getting my vote.
Thanks, Jackie. Councillor Halliday and then Councillor Holborough.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. Look, first of all, I'd like to just voice my support for Councillor Compton's views. I think they're quite relevant in regards to everything he did say. Look, I remember coming to this table 6 to 8 years ago, representing the Paraparaumu Beach Business Association, asking about visitor attraction and tourism, and I received pretty bleak answers. It's been a long road to get to this point. It's great that this work is done and is supported by the current economic development plan, and that we have the independent EDK board to lead and oversee its implementation. But I didn't ask a lot of questions simply because we've been here before. In 2015, we have the 2015 to 2018 economic development strategy and the 2015 and 2020 visitor attraction strategy, which is actually still quite relevant, neither of which were really given effect. So I hope this will not be a hospital pass to the EDKB. This plan will need implementation, resourcing and funding, real public-private partnerships, because it is all there. And I've been very encouraged by what I've heard from Darren and the other council staff in relation to this. There is substantial industry frustration out there at the moment. We've missed out on government funding re-COVID to directly impact in there, and now due to our current structures or lack thereof. So this has to change. How we do business in the space has to change, and we have to be proactive. As I've heard in the Te Whakamina o Kāpiti, more dui, less hui. There seems to be a lot of focus on hero type projects, and I note this is at the top of the positioning pyramid. We need to ensure that the foundations in that pyramid are strong so that our small day-to-day businesses are supported via that visitor attraction. And for me, it's all about the day visit. I am concerned around the focus on Te Urihi being the fix it for Kapiti, when there is so much more to this space. I want to note the creative sector, and also actually want to note the wedding sector or the wedding industry, which interestingly does not even get a mention in this document. But I will be supporting this kaupapa as we move forward, but with a caveat. I don't have high hopes, but I do like what I'm hearing, and I have been, and we've all been hoping for years, but I have high expectations because Kapiti does deserve that. Finishing note, I have 30 years plus in the hospitality industry and look forward to being a part of a success team as we move forward. And I am encouraged by what I see.
Thanks very much, Martin. I think last up is Councillor Holborough, and then I'll just check with Councillor Buswell around a right of reply, and we'll put it to the vote from there, noting division from Councillor Compton. So Councillor Holborough.
Look, I just wanted to talk Councillor Buswell's comments, congratulating the team on the huge amount of work that's gone into this. I think already, even before we get to implementation, we're seeing benefits from this with the connection that's happened between council and our stakeholders and our tourism deliverers and other people in the community, even during the development phase of this. And their connections and that's work that's going to be able to be, it's going to enable us to build on this and have a successful implementation. And I would encourage my elected members, even if they don't agree with elements of this strategy, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. This is a wonderful document and a wonderful opportunity. We've already heard that it stands tall in terms of similar strategies of its kind around the rohe. So I would just really encourage my fellow councillors to support this. We need to get moving on this piece of work. Even if you don't agree with some elements of it, just get in behind. We need to get this work moving. We've been waiting for this for a long time. And I would really encourage everybody to support this today. And my congratulations to the team on delivering this wonderful piece of work. Thank you.
Thank you, Janet. And just before we go to Councillor Buswell, if she has a right of reply, just want to tautoko the comments from my colleagues, particularly Kylie. I know that I've already mentioned you, but I think the plan is what it is through the work of your team and the council staff. Without that involvement, it may not be what it is. And certainly I'm all about the Dewey and not so much about Hui, Martin. So I agree with those sentiments there. But from my perspective, two really key things have stood out today. There are many others, and there may be some flies in the ointment as Gwyn has raised. But the two things that have stood out for me is that we have a plan, and that plan is able to be demonstrated to Wellington NZ. And we've got discussions between our Kotahitanga board and them around funding, which has been a source of contention for a number of years. So that in itself, I think is a big win for both the plan and also for the decision to set up the Kotahitanga board and the work that Neil and his team are doing. So I think there are many other benefits than just those, but those is one that I really want to point out, is that it's not like we are at the start of a journey. We're already on this journey, and there are already some wins sort of starting to get racked up on the board. So I see Councillor Buswell's waved her right to reply. I'm going to put that to the vote. And so just bring up your voting tabs, everyone. All those in favour. And then we'll just give Dem Services time to record that. And then Gwyn, just a bit of a nod. You still want division there? Yep, thumbs up. And so I think for that, we need a staff member to call division and read out the names for the purposes of recording. So over to you, team, to call division.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, we have 8 votes in favour and 2 votes against. Those voting in favour, Councillor Coots, the Mayor, Councillor Elliott, Councillor Holbrow, Councillor Pravanov, Councillor Halliday, Councillor McCann and Councillor Handford. Those voting against, Councillor Compton and Councillor Randall.
Thank you, Grayson. And I see Councillor Buswell's just popped her finger up.
Okay. So, and that would be Councillor Buswell in favour then as well.
Yeah, Buswell in favour as well. So
thank you.
Like that, division's been called, Gwyn, so that's been noted. That paper has been passed. Kylie, again, just want to thank you for your efforts to date and for attending the meeting and helping us come to this decision today, and all the work that you've done there. So, kia ora.
Thank you very much. Take care.
Darren, thank you, team. Look, I think there's I'm getting some messages for a break from the team. So I appreciate that we have 2 more reports to come, but if we can break for 10 minutes, unless staff tell me otherwise, if we've got people that are waiting and critical, but that's not the case, is it, Grayson?
No, we're clear to go.
Excellent, team. So look, just a quick look at the time. If we can be back at 11:10, and we'll chop into item 8.2 and work forward from there.